we homeschool and we're not doing school the last week before Christmas, and it's Christmas next week. Next time you see me, it will be in January of 2025. So this is actually the last video that I will be putting out in 2024, hence my casual attire. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ashley, and today we are just going to do a little chatty video wrapping up 2024. In the year of 2024, I was pretty much out of the loop, definitely out of BookTube. I was trying to come back and it wasn't very successful, but I feel like I've got a handle on that now and I'm jumping back in, and I feel like I'm in a place where I can continue to make videos. As far as my reading, I was feeling like it was quite off after I ran through some stats and looked at everything. It wasn't too bad. I actually did all right. So let's go through some of my goals and stats and all of the things about my reading. I actually did not pull out my goals for 2024. I know I made a few, but they were kind of like a forgotten thing. I didn't even make a reading journal last year. I started it and I drew out the first few pages, like a goals page and a reading log, I think maybe, or something, but then I never touched it again, and I never made any more monthly spreads or anything. It was a hard year for me in that respect of like trying to do things that I wanted to do. So I don't even have that to look back on. I know I set my Goodreads goal for 50 books. That's what I always set it at. I did complete that goal. I think I also kind of just redid some of my same goals that I did last year and was hoping to read or finish 5 series. I'm pretty sure I didn't make that goal. If I finished any series, it may have been like 1 or 2. That's all I have to say about my reading goals from this year. But let's go through some of my stats. So as I had mentioned, I set a goal for 50 books and I completed that goal. So I actually read 88 books in the year of 2024, which is the highest number that I ever recorded on Goodreads. And I've been with Goodreads for a very long time, since it was back in beta. I think the highest before this was probably like 78 books. But the difference with this year is that half of my books were read to my 8-year-old. Statistically, about 49 of the books were read for me. The rest of them were about 40 books for my daughter. So right, almost half and half. I am really going to try and hope to finish at least one more book this month before the end of the year. Moving on, I also set a page goal on Storygraph because they have it. I have kind of set a page goal in past years, but I haven't really ever like tried to meet it. And I don't think I've ever met it. I dropped it a little bit this year to 20,000 pages and I met that goal. I usually set it the last couple of years, I think at like 25,000, and I don't make it. And so I kind of wanted to be like, yeah, I did it, because I'm usually in the 20 to 25,000 range. So yeah, I made that goal. Okay, so on to more statistic things. Of the 88 books that I read, only one was a tome of more than 500 pages. And technically that book was an ebook of 3 books together to make a series, but it was like all in one on an ebook. So whether that counts as a tome or not, altogether it was more than 500 pages. I had 35 books that were 300 to 500 pages, which is about typical of the size books that I read. But I did have 52 books that were less than 300 pages. And that's because of all the children's books that I read to my daughter. So maybe a handful were not for her and were from me that were shorter books. Of the 88 books, I had 4 nonfiction books and 85 fiction books. That is very typical, but in actuality, that's probably the most nonfiction books I've read in a year ever. I would like to do some more of that in the future. Going on to genres, I have the 3 top genres besides kids books. The kids books were definitely the highest genre. I don't know why they typically label that as a genre. I consider that more of an audience range. But of course, over half of the books were children's books. But besides that, the top 3 categories of genres were fantasy, thriller, and contemporary, which on one hand, I am a little surprised that fantasy was the top one. On the other hand, I'm not, because thriller and contemporaries are definitely my top genres. I do like to read a little bit of fantasy, but then again, I think a lot of the fantasy kicked in from the children's books. So there's that. Okay, so then I have the least read genres. And I am quite surprised actually by this. The 3 bottom genres were literary fiction, which I do tend to enjoy, horror, which I also tend to enjoy, and magical realism, which that's not a surprise. I'm not a fan of magical realism, but I feel like I tend to read more horror, and I do generally end up liking literary fiction more. So I'm surprised that those were the bottom genres. And those 3 were the bottom ones, besides all of the ones that I only had 1 book in a genre. So I only had 1 poetry book, 1 memoir, 1 graphic novel, 1 sci-fi, which I was also a little surprised at, 1 Christian nonfiction. The other nonfiction were non-Christian books, 1 short story, 1 classic, and 1 crime. But the classics, I know I read more than 1. It was probably 3 classics at least, because a couple of the children's books were decently older classic books, but they didn't register that way. Okay, on to some other things. I have the format. No surprise here, 68 books of my 88 were print. I am definitely a physical print book reader. I had 3 ebooks, and that's usually because they are e-arcs, and I read at least 2 of those this year. I can't remember if the third one, I'm not sure if it was an arc or not, but yeah, I definitely need to do more of that in the future though, because I have a decent amount of arcs that I need to get through. And then I had 18 audiobooks, and that is the largest number of audiobooks I've ever read in a year. Usually it's like between 5 and 10 or even less than that. So 18 audiobooks. I definitely read more audio books this year. I do tend to enjoy thrillers as audios more than reading them physically sometimes, just because I don't tend to want to reread thrillers, and so I'd rather listen to them from the library. Onto my star ratings. I only had 7 5-stars. And 3 of those 5 stars were rereads of Harry Potter. Only 4 new books I gave 5 stars to. I talk about why that probably is in my tops and bottoms of 2024. But yeah, the ones that I did give 5 stars, they were some good books. 43 4 stars, which of course is usually the highest amount is 4 stars. 35 3 stars. I usually don't have as many 3 stars, but the kids' books kind of came into play there. And then I only had 2 2-star books. So one of them I know was a kid's book, and the other one was just one that I didn't enjoy very much. No 1 stars. I'm sure I DNF'd some books. I forgot to look at that. Like I had said, it was kind of a hard year being able to do what I wanted to do. And so there were some times that I just could not bring myself to read, or just wasn't really enjoying what I was reading. The month that I read the most was August, and the months that I read the least were both July and December. Those 2 months have 3 books listed each, but like I said, it's currently December, and I'm hoping to read at least 1 more book, so hopefully. Other than that, the next 2 higher months were April and November. Everything else, I read about a handful of books. So Definitely August was a big month for me, which is unusual, but I came out of a big reading slump then. And then I kind of hit another big reading slump in the fall, which is so sad. I hit reading slumps hard when I hit them. So those are all my stats. If there's anything that surprised you or anything that you would like to know more about, please let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for coming around and watching my videos. And I hope to see a lot more of you in the future. Have a great Christmas and New Year's. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.